Hi, Bill Henshaw here again, Constitutional Kook headquarters. And I just recently done a couple of videos on the mandatory COVID vaccine and how I think, we have some issues here. If we make a, quick and timely intervention, we can take care of business. And they're somewhat related to the subject matter of this video, which is BLM and Dylan Roof. And the Roof case, just recently in the news, if you don't know, this is a young, stupid white kid that went in Charleston, South Carolina, and shot up a black church and killed a number of people, I think 8 or 9. And he's on death row, I think in Illinois somewhere. And the death sentence was just upheld by the Fourth Circuit in North Carolina. But the important part about this is this Dylan Rue case is how I ended up doing a 7-month vacation as a political prisoner in South Carolina, because I sent them about 150-page writ of habeas corpus to the South Carolina Supreme Court. And I said, hey, you don't have jurisdiction here. They didn't like it. Now, what they said, by the way, with their own documents that they used to arrest me and drag me across country for 2 months, was that basically they threw it in the circular file in the first reading. Well, if they did that, there would have been no damage, no nothing. But as bad as that was, but that said, I did what I did there because I knew that South Carolina wasn't a state and the courts didn't have jurisdiction. And by the way, I would have done exactly the same thing had the situation been reversed. Black shooter, white church. Although, had that happened, I don't think they could have charged the black shooter with hate crimes, quote unquote, which is what Roof got convicted of and sentenced to death in a federal court that had less jurisdiction than they had in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, this is how crazy this is. But a big point I want to make here is with the BLM and what you might call the Confederate side south of the Mason-Dixon line, seemingly on opposite sides here. It isn't true. You just have to get the right perspective here. And I've got a quote here I think that covers it nicely from T.S. Eliot, that he said that the last temptation is the final treason, to do the right thing for the wrong reason. And BLM and civil rights advocates, that's exactly what you're doing when you invoke civil rights and the non-existent 14th War Amendment. Those are all war acts of Congress. And by doing that, what you're doing is destroying the nation and republic ordained and established by the framers of the Constitution and the American people, and replacing it with who the hell knows what. Now we have no Republican form of government guaranteed to the states under Article 4, Section 4. And wouldn't you know, the 9 farts in Washington, D.C. have only ruled on that issue one time that I found, called Luther v. Borden in 1842. That's the kind of issue we need to start getting there within this civil rights crap. It's not going to work. It was never designed to work. And the people that, set up the 14th Amendment and got it enabled, couldn't have cared less about the freedmen. All they wanted to do was get them the right to vote so they could control the southern states, they control the Congress. And by the way, the 14th Amendment did not do that. They took the 15th Amendment to do it. And of course, neither of those amendments exist. And in fact, none of them after the 13th exist. That's a video for another day, but they don't exist. War acts of Congress. And what they apply in is what states have been relegated to, which looks like to me federal insular territorial possessions. If you're not familiar with the word insular, think at one time here, as far as America is concerned, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, Mariana Islands, territories that aren't going to become states and can't become states. And Congress has a lot more power there, though not without limitations. And oh, by the way, think of this quickie. We got a lot of people, especially from China now, that have a lot of money and going over there, with their wives to give birth in the Mariana Islands, because they have the same goddamn citizenship that we have under the 14th War Amendment. And they go back to China, and now they're getting social insecurity checks for benefits for these people. Same citizenship. This has to stop. It wasn't the way it is. It's not the way it should be. To be sure, probably wasn't perfect in 1791 either, but it's a hell of a lot better than what we have now. And I think both sides should understand what's going on here, because when you're saying Black Lives Matter in this context and relying on acts of war of Congress, the Supreme Court has identified those as acts of treason, and I agree with them. That's what it is. There are much better ways to do this, less expensive, more controllable, and we can get things done in accordance with the Constitution, not in contravention of it. Now, there may still be an element here, even at this late date. And I remember when I was growing up and I spent summer times in the shadow of Jeffersonian Republicanism. And I spent some time at my grandparents' house in what was called then West Bygosh, Virginia. I didn't get the joke like I understand it now, because West Virginia and Nebraska had to have been the same way in 1861. But the good old Dad Stevens, don't get me started on this bastard. There's somebody I would love to get 2,000 votes for treason to the Constitution, and I'd laugh at him and flipping off while I was doing it. Ain't. But he said on the record, West Virginia was admitted pursuant to the war powers of Congress. And if you look at the map of the United States, you'll figure out immediately why that is without me having to tell you that. So that said, all the other states since have been admitted to the war powers, not Article 4, Section 3, even if initially it may look that way. That's not what happened, because this union, quote unquote, under Article 4, Section 3, hasn't been in existence since 1859. Simple. And that's what's going on here. They're using divide and conquer against us to keep us all from understanding what the real situation is and working together and overcoming, especially the politicians in Washington, D.C. and their New York bankster bosses. And probably behind that, you got I can't think of the name right now, but the one world people that wanted to be all one world, and they're getting closer and closer every day to that. The trilateralists and people like this. And I studied enough to recognize the agenda immediately, which I wouldn't have had a clue when I was in high school either. I didn't know. I sure as hell know now. And that's what both sides have to understand here, that both are right and wrong at the same time. I mean, BLM is certainly nothing wrong with the concept, especially with all the nonsense been going on in the last 5 or 6 years, if not more than that. Unusually high percentage of Black people, getting bumped off by law enforcement thugs. Used to be peace officers when I was growing up. I remember have any incident like this ever occur. It just didn't. They were doing a different job then than what they're doing now. Law enforcement thugs. And I wonder, and I'm going to be sending some official paperwork off, I'll get to you later. By the way, on that count, before I move on, do you want information with my modestly priced constitutional defense document packet? Send me an email, youwinincourt@gmail.com. I'll get it right out to you. And we'll see how things go. But that said, we have to get changed and get it back to where it was. It wasn't perfect, but it can be again. And by the way, to you BLM advocates out there, think about this one. If we get back where we should be, then at least pursuant to the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, you would have a lot of enforceable rights, including the right to trial by jury according to the course of the common law. That's the ultimate check and balance, on these state bar association types and the military goons that have been, taking a place over for the last 150 years. If we get back to where we can do that, that's real relief, and all of us are entitled to it. And there's more to it than just that too. So that's the good news, and you'll learn a lot more about that. Send me an email, youwinincourt@gmail.com, and I'll get you my information back and explain to you what I do, why I do it. You're going to love it. Both sides are going to love this. We should be on the same side here. Doesn't matter which side of the Mason-Dixon line you're on, because unbeknownst to the Yankees up there in the north, the 14th Amendment wiped out those states too. They're gone. There are no states. That's the cause to love of everything I do. That's Pandora's box is what that is. And we start making arguments like this, we're going to find out in a hurry. Do we have a constitution and republic, or don't we? We can act accordingly once we know the answer to that question. John Roberts, are you listening out there? So that said, it's just important to get on the right page here and do the right things for the right reasons. If we do that and we do it working together, and cut out this divide and conquer crap, and all of us work together, Asians, Americans, Africans, we'll get it done a lot quicker and a lot better. Where what we do can't be fixed unless they do an amendment to the Constitution, but they're going to have to do it in accordance with the Constitution, and they probably can't, because if they're going to change what we do, they're going to need people in the conventions and states. You read Article 5 of the Constitution, that's what it says. Our agents in the state legislatures can't make changes in what we do. This is a principal and agent relationship. We tell them what the hell to do, not the other way around. And that, by the way, is a big reason that the 14th War Amendment doesn't exist, even if it otherwise did. And note here that originally, Congress sent it to the legislatures of the southern states who had ratified the 13th Amendment, which clearly recognized they were back in the Union now, didn't it? But all of the southern states voted in sufficient numbers to defeat it today against the 14th Amendment. And the Reconstruction Act of 1867 comes in and conveniently removes all those legislatures and puts in war legislatures. And they didn't have the power to do it either. If you're going to change the sovereign body politic of the nation and republic, and that's not what the idea was there, but assuming it was, and make us all equal, then it has to be done by principles, not our agents. What they were really trying to do, and what they've succeeded at this moment in time in doing, is making us all equal. Yeah, you bet. But they've reduced us to a condition of statelessness along with the freedman, and you have no more rights than you did then. And like Roger Bertani said in that infamous Dred Scott case, the black man has no rights the white man is bound to respect. It's just paraphrased today, and we would say that nobody has any rights the de facto National Socialist government is bound to respect. That's what all of us should want to change. That's what I'm here to help you to do, to get the word out and help you teach your children and your posterity and get these bastards off our back. For more information, send me an email, youwinincourt@gmail.com. Subscribe, like the videos, tell your friends, get the word out. Thank you.